President Duterte hopes that our lives will be back to normal come December. This is following reports that some of the vaccines against COVID-19 are already being developed in some of the countries and will be made available in the market anytime soon. President Duterte broke his silence on criticism surrounding his fifth State of the Nation address last Monday. In a taped speech aired Friday, the president said he could not articulate a COVID-19 roadmap as vaccine against the disease remains elusive.
Ito ng gabing ito. Hindi kami makaano ng, I could not have uttered a single sentence about roadmap to recovery. Kasi ang una talaga diyan, ang medicine.
He then assured the public that things will change in the next few months as he vouched for the development of COVID-19 vaccines in some countries.
I promise you, by the grace of God, I hope by December we would be back to normal.
The president has time and again thrown his weight behind the vaccine being developed in China. In his SONA, he said he had talked Chinese President Xi Jinping into prioritizing the Philippines once it becomes available. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez said the development of vaccine in China, Britain, and U.S. are now on their third stage. It means their own Food and Drug Administration may start its approval by October, and the vaccine may be available by December. Dominguez noted that Philippines will have to shell out some 20 billion pesos for the purchase of shots.
Ang estimate ng Department of Health, we will need to vaccinate for free a minimum of 20 million people, di ba? So I don't know if it's one vaccine or two shots though. So we need 40 million vaccines, doses.
But it's not health workers that will administer the distribution of vaccines once available. President Duterte says he will give the floor to the military. Among the priorities are the underprivileged, middle-income earners, and uniformed personnel. He even quipped the drug pushers won't benefit from the vaccine.
Yung kalaban ko, sabihin ko sa military, do not use the needle. Bayonet ang gamitin mo.
The chief executive also has reservations on whether to allow members of the New People's Army to avail of the privilege.
Yung mga NPA, papakunahan ko ba? If you stop fighting for a while during the period or until December, kasi my soldiers will be busy monitoring, supervising. Kung wag lang ninyong galawin, pwede kayong sumali, pumila doon.
Charles, President Duterte is almost certain that China will be successful in developing a vaccine against COVID-19. So far, 2 out of 3 vaccines that are being developed by Chinese firms are now in its phase 3. This is the last step before the regulatory approval. Charles?
Thank you. That was Maricel Halili reporting live from Mandaluyong. President Rodrigo Duterte heeded the call of Metro Manila mayors and extended the general community quarantine across the capital. GCQ is also up over in Bulacan, Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Lapu-Lapu City, Mandaue City, Talisay City, Minglanilla, Consolacion, and Zamboanga City. Areas not on the list are placed under modified GCQ. Malacanang noted that localized lockdown may be implemented in areas with high community transmission of COVID-19.
Po ng strict localized lockdown, ECQ sa mga barangay kung saan merong 80% po ng mga kaso at ito po nga mga lugar ng po ito ay ipapaalam natin sa publiko through publication.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque added that they have amended the minimum health standards to include the wearing of face shields on top of face masks. He later on clarified that face shields are highly encouraged but not really required. President Duterte, meanwhile, said his recent advice to use gasoline as a disinfectant wasn't a joke.
Pag walang alcohol available, hindi ka naman pwede, lalo na mahirap. Magpunta ka lang dyan sa gasoline station niya pagkatapos na magpatulo ng That's disinfectant.
For Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez, after the economy had plunged to its lowest in April and May, recovery is already in sight. But Dominguez said there are still problems that need to be addressed.
Among them, number one, yung transportation, kailangan we have to have more transportation available. We have to encourage people also to start spending spending money so that the economy can start picking up.
The Health Department explains the spike in COVID recoveries that it released on Thursday. The Department of Health assures the public that it's following standards set by the WHO in its reporting of COVID-19 numbers. Greg Gregorio tells us more.
The DOH explains the spike isn't that unusual because the number is a product of data reconciliation and the reclassification of mild and asymptomatic cases. On Thursday, the Health Department reported the biggest single-day jump of around 38,000 recoveries, pushing the total count north of 65,000.
Marami pa rin sa reporting units natin, no? Especially yung nanggagaling sa ating local governments, hindi rin nila ina-update yung kanilang form for the outcomes of the patient.
Vergere explained that reporting units, including LGUs, had a different interpretation of the department's memorandum issued back in May and tagged recoveries longer than needed. Under the current protocol, asymptomatic patients and those with mild symptoms may be considered recovered patients once they've completed the 14-day quarantine without showing signs and symptoms of the disease like fever. Vergere clarified, RT-PCR testing is no longer needed. What's more important is the capacity of the patient to infect others.
Even USCDC and WHO mentioned this, and pag nakita natin yung kanilang protocols for tagging recoveries na andun na, no, na talagang on the 10th day, talagang dinidischarge na nila, no, based on evidence na talagang you are non-infectious.
The Health Department admits it's struggling to attract additional healthcare workers. On Thursday's episode of One Says the Chiefs, Vergere says they're considering giving incentives so more professionals will apply.
Kailangan lang talaga i-incentivize na mas maayos at maipaliwanag talaga na talagang pangangalagaan sila ng gobyerno.
The likes of Perlin Bon heeded the call. For managing their family business, she decided to practice nursing when COVID infection hit thousands of Filipinos.
Pag nangihina na ako, kapag sobrang pagod na ako, kinakanta ko na lang yung aking adhika, makita ka sa kalat. Kasi talagang nakakapanghina yung situation natin ngayon.
She's now with the National Kidney and Transplant Institute, which says that they would need hundreds of new hires if they were to allocate more beds for their COVID care.
Expansion is about capability to provide health care. That means you have to have the people.
The NKTI has allotted 45% of its beds just for COVID-19, and they're now close to full capacity. Gregorio, we are One News.
New COVID-19 infections in the country hit another record high today. The Health Department reported more than 4,000 new cases, exceeding yesterday's all-time high. This brings total confirmed cases in the country to over 93,000, 26,000 of which are active cases. 40 more Filipinos died of the coronavirus overnight. This means total reported deaths in the country have now breached the 2,000 mark. Adding to yesterday's so-called mass recoveries, 165 more Filipinos recuperated from the virus. As it stands, over 65,000 have gotten better from the SARS-like disease. Despite the increase in cases, majority of employed Filipinos feel comfortable about going to work. A recent SWS survey found that only 40% of employed Filipinos have qualms about physically going to work if community quarantine is lifted next month. Meanwhile, 45% of adults feel comfortable about attending religious services. We're pausing for a quick break. One News Now will be right back. still watching One News Now, I'm Charles Lejano. The Joint Task Force COVID Shield will be strictly implementing the back riding rule beginning tomorrow, August 1. Motorcycle riders, even those who disagree with the policy, flock to Caloocan and Quezon City in search of plastic barriers. These cost anywhere between 500 and 650 pesos. Repeat offenders may be fined as much as 10,000 pesos. Task Force Commander Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar reiterates that pillion riders are only allowed for married couples and live-in partners.
Bukas pag sila'y nahuli natin, titikitan sila. Kukumpiskahin yung kanilang lisensya at yan na itutubusin nila sa LTO base dun sa schedule ng mga fines na nabanggit natin. Ang sinabi ng ating SILG, Secretary Eduardo Anyo, ay wala namang pilitan, hindi natin pinipilit ang ating mga kabayan maglagay ng barrier. Pero huwag sila magangkas.
More businesses in areas under GCQ will be allowed to reopen their doors to the public starting tomorrow. To tell us how they're preparing for this, we have Shaila Francisco. She's reporting live from Manila. Shaila, are establishments all set to reopen?
Yes, Charles, more establishments in Metro Manila are ready to welcome customers back to their stores starting tomorrow. Business owners have modified their shops to comply with health and safety protocols, but they worry if this will be enough to attract customers. This internet shop in Pasig has already installed plastic barriers between computers. The owner says not all computers will be rented out when they reopen on Saturday. Headphones and keyboards will be disinfected, but customers are encouraged to bring their own. Customers have to present an ID to prove they're allowed to go out of their homes. That means no customers are under 21 years of age. Games will be removed from the computers, as the shops will only open for work and education purposes, especially with remote work and distance learning still in place.
Lalo na sa mga hindi afford yung bumili ng computer, saka walang internet sa bahay, siguro mas maganda sa computer shop kasi nga ready na siya, nakaset na siya, pwede nang gamitin.
Nail salons are likewise implementing several changes. In this salon in Makati, seats are covered in plastic. Workers are required to wear gloves for hand and foot spa and mani-pedi treatments. Materials will have to be sterilized after every use. Chit-chatting during mani-pedi sessions will also be prohibited. Other businesses allowed to open in GCQ areas include personal care services, including waxing, derma, and massages, except full-body massages, pet grooming, drive-in cinemas, gyms and fitness centers, and review and tutorial centers. For gyms, face masks and gloves are required when handling equipment, and an exhaust system will be required at all times. In tutorial and testing centers, only 10 persons will be allowed per room, and everyone will be required to wear masks and shields. Violators will be penalized.
Ma-issuean sila ng closure until they stop, and then the local government unit also can either suspend or revoke the business permits issued to them.
While this is a welcome development, establishments worry that they might not be able to recoup their losses given limited operations.
Ang schedule namin per hour, isang kliyente per hour lang. Matatagalan pa rin kami bago namin mabawi.
Meanwhile, under MGCQ areas, shops offering full-body massages, body piercing, and live events will be allowed to reopen. But cockfighting, beer houses, and kid amusement industries will remain prohibited in any form of quarantine. Charles, some businesses are hoping that the trade industry will extend assistance to help them pay rent. The DTI, for its part, says they are offering loans for pandemic-hit businesses. In the State of the Nation address, President Duterte also urged landlords to extend grace periods and allow deferment of payments for their tenants. Charles?
Thank you, Shaila. That was Shaila Francisco reporting from Manila. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star and Business World online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. And you can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. We are One News.